says you're in a practice session. I'm not sure if this is the right,
No, it is the right. It's the right.
It is the right one. Yeah. Okay, great.
So, good day to all. Thank you for joining us for today's lecture on 10 years of SRI, a decade-long journey of creating digital tools for Sanskrit by Martin Gluckman of the Sanskrit Research Institute, Auroville. This is the second of a monthly series initiated by the International Research Division at the India International Center, Delhi, Kriti-SAMHiTA, the Plurality of Indian Knowledge Systems. This forms part of a project, Samhita, South Asian Manuscript Histories and Textual Archive, which IIC has started this year with support from the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Samhita's goal is to create a knowledge resource on manuscripts from South Asia that are now housed in libraries and private collections outside India. This would be an online platform that scholars and enthusiasts all over the world would have access to. We're very happy to be partnering with the Sanskrit Research Institute in this on mapping repositories from across the world. Unfortunately, Dr. Sudha Gopalakrishnan, Executive Director of IIC's International Research Division and Project Director for Samhita, is indisposed and she will not be able to join us today. But we're very happy to have as chair Professor Mohini Malik, who taught philosophy at IIT Kanpur and has doctoral degrees from Lucknow University and from Manchester University, and has published on philosophical logic and the philosophy of the social sciences. Over the last 3 decades, she has engaged with Indian thought traditions, and particularly the question of how Sanskrit terms are translated into English. In 2011, she was co-convener of a workshop at the IIC, a collaboration between the International Research Division and the Indian Council for Philosophical Research, which was published as Classical Indian Thought and English Language, Perspectives and Problems. I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation, but given their interests. Professor Malik, may I request you to introduce our speaker?
Thank you, Niharika. And let me start by saying that I'm happy to be standing in for Dr. Gopalakrishnan, who unfortunately is not with us today. Let me welcome everyone from, I guess, from various parts of the world, but especially our speaker, Professor Gluckman. And I'll say a few words about Professor Gluckman for everybody's information. He started studying computer science in South Africa, but he completed Sanskrit studies, I guess a specialization, at the Australian National University with Dr. McComas Taylor. In 2011, he founded the Sanskrit Research Institute, about which Niharika has already spoken, so I won't go into that. But I'd like to say a few words about the tools that this institute has been developing, because they are fascinating, and maybe some can raise some controversies as well. But let me just enumerate a few. One, a very ambitious project is, and a tool, it's already been developed, is a Sanskrit dictionary with 1 million words. And this enables users to search multiple dictionaries simultaneously. It's been called a meta dictionary because you can simultaneously look for the meanings of words from ancient and present day sources. I think this is absolutely fascinating and very, very important. Then there is, of course, Panini research tool for exploration, for the exploration of Panini's grammar. And then another one, which again, I think is very challenging, and that is generating Sanskrit synonyms for English words. So you can type in an English word and look, I mean, I assume it's that there always are synonyms, or you'll be informed that there aren't, but you can generate synonyms from Sanskrit for English words. There is another part of this project which is very interesting. And that is looking up the frequencies of the occurrence of words across 181 texts. I mean, this has already been accomplished. And these texts include Buddhist texts, I'm told. And so that's particularly interesting because many texts are in Pali. So, but we are looking up the frequencies of Sanskrit words in these texts. And so with this, I very warmly welcome Professor Gluckman. And I must say that I personally look forward to hearing about these tools. And then, of course, we will see whether time permits for further discussion. Professor Gluckman.
Thank you very much, Professor Malik. It's wonderful. I'm just going to set a timer so I can keep on time. Am I audible to everyone? Yes, I believe I am. Wonderful. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll start my presentation. And welcome, everyone. I see some familiar names around the world, and thank you very much to the India International Center and to the Samhita project, and also to Sudha. I wish you a speedy recovery. I think Sudha is listening, but she's recovering from illness. And Niharika, thank you for organizing so beautifully. Thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen and I will start my presentation now. And thank you for that wonderful introduction, Professor Malik. Here we go. Right. So I'm going to cover a fair amount of material. I'll go a little bit rapidly. This is the 10-year, decade-long journey of the Sanskrit Research Institute. And this is actually our logo. It's got the two lions. For those who've studied Panini, you'll know there's that famous story of Panini being eaten by a lion whilst he was attending to observe the sound of the lion roaring and try to understand the sound rather than run away like his students. Like many of these stories, it's to show you that we should put a lot of attention on sound, and Sanskrit is very much so a sonic journey for those who have studied it. So we have the two lions, and it's called the Sanskrit Research Institute. It's a little play on words because I wanted something that looks like Sri, which is the Anglicization of Shri, which means glorious or splendid. And it's the Samskrita Gaveshana Samsthanam in Sanskrit. So the organization is based in Auroville, and in a very beautiful part of Southeast India, in the project of Auroville, which was founded in 1968. And we're under the trust of the Sri Aurobindo International Institute of Educational Research. So this is where we are domiciled. And we are 12 kilometers north of Pondicherry and about 2 hours from Chennai, just for those who want to orientate where we are based. And Auroville was founded. I just want to get this off my screen. Sorry, it's going to full screen. So Auroville was founded in 1968. It has 3,286 people from 60 countries coming together. So it's really a fascinating project. For those who haven't visited, I recommend that. This is where we are based, and it has this emphasis on education, emphasis on research, and also an emphasis on bridging the past and the future. So it's a perfect place to work on this incredible field that has carried the memory of India's last millennia. And besides that, the mother and Sri Aurobindo, who founded Auroville, they both themselves had focused largely on Sanskrit and wished for there to be more light focused on this language. So it's also a very, very relevant place to base this work from. And this is just an artist illustration of our team. Recently, we had one of our artist volunteers, just to give you an idea of what our office looks like. It's a team working in an institute with a library, and it's very digital, but we're also surrounded by this beautiful green oasis. So it just puts it into context. And the beauty of this project of human unity is we've had volunteers from 9 countries, about 40 volunteers over the last decade. and many continue to work remotely. So I always say it's a volunteer-powered project, and the spirit of human unity is very much conveyed in the work that we're doing. So my personal story in a nutshell is my father was a physician, and I started to study Ayurveda in 1999. And I had a teacher who just said, read Charaka, and it was great advice because Charaka really has the full overview of this Ayurveda. And at one stage, I remember I used to carry all 7 volumes. Of those who are familiar with this Vaidya Bhagavan Das version of Charaka-Samhita, I used to carry it around with me. And incidentally, one of the little tools we made along the journey was a e-Charaka, like a digital Charaka. I'm just going to open it now, and you can search it, and you can look at 3 different versions of the Charaka-Samhita. So I don't need to carry those 7 volumes around with me anymore. But that was my devotion from this deep interest and love for medicine and healing. Ayurveda was my entry point. I think anyone who's encountered deeper Sanskrit studies had an entry point sometimes through a particular text that they were devoted to. It could be the Gita or something that enamored them. And of course, I don't have to go into this in detail, but Sanskrit is of course one of these incredible intellectual treasures of all mankind. It's called by Leonard Bloomfield the greatest monument of human intelligence. This was just speaking about Panini itself, which is the compression of the grammar into 4,000 odd sutras. And it spans this huge range from the eastern border of Iran all the way to Indonesia. You will find a record of Sanskrit's usage, and we're going to see in some of the tools how this becomes clear. The thing that really got me and a lot of scholars is the vastness of the Pregutenbergic literature. So we have anything, the David Pingree estimate is 30 million, and more conservative is 7 million. So we have anything from 7 to 30 million Sanskrit manuscripts. This quantification and the counting, of course, it's a moving target because as we speak, manuscripts are decaying, and there is a bit of an urgency, although there's been incredible efforts of preservation in different institutes internationally and also in India. It's something that we're going to talk about in the second part of my talk. I'm going to show you our moonshot project that we're working on, which is concerned with this corpus of literature and creating a digital representation of it. And it also very much overlaps with the objectives of Samhita. So if we were to stack all these manuscripts together, we calculated with our team based on the average width, even if it was the 7 million, it would cross India from east to west. This is how many manuscripts are there just in Sanskrit. And of course, in allied languages, it would be even further. And just to put this in a graph, what we call classics, which is your Greek and Latin corpi, is around 30,000 each. At its upper estimate, and this is anything from 200 to 1,000 times larger. So this is something of incredible concern for humanity to preserve and to digitize and to have there for future generations in different formats. And this is what we're going to be getting to. So our works really started as creating a series of tools, and the tools were created over many years by many volunteers, these 42 volunteers, including myself as the director of the project. And as I saw there was something that needed to be done better or to be improved, or there was a gap or dearth, we had put our awareness and focused on it. And it's culminated in this production of a number of interlinked tools that are actually the most important thing for us is that they're being used. They're not just sitting in an archive unused, but they're actually being used in approximately 200 countries. And statistically, maybe around 75,000 people are visiting all our different tools, or users, according to the web statistics. So it's very good to see that, that the tools are being out there and being used. So one of the things that I felt needed improvement was the digital lexicons and the thesauri, and also to focus on roots and word frequency. And early on, in about a decade ago, we made this meta dictionary. Of course, there were brilliant dictionaries out there like Monia Williams and Apte, and the Cologne University has done wonderful individual dictionaries, but we wanted to have a meta dictionary. And this was also largely as I was studying specialized subjects such as Vyakarana or the Ayurveda. I needed to see words like yoga in Ayurveda would mean a preparation. It would mean unity of things in general speak, and many other meanings in grammar and so forth. So I wanted a meta dictionary, and it seems that this has become quite popular, that people who are studying Sanskrit and also specializing in a particular subject can compare different sources. And so we took a number of sources that were already individually there, and we unified them with permission from the authors when it needed, or if they were out of copyright, then we just published and then accredited where the sources were. So this was something that was done earlier, and it keeps evolving. There's more sources that we're adding. At its current stage, it has, as mentioned, around 1 million words, and we'll take a look at that a little just now. So it's searching. It's a meta dictionary. It's searching multiple sources at once. Just to put it into perspective, you have 228,000 words in Oxford. This says 1 million. Of course, those who are working computationally with Sanskrit, you can render many, many more words, and it depends how you look at the word linguistically. But this is what is searchable, and each has a unique independent meaning. One of the things we also did early on is we allowed the user to translate from their native language to Sanskrit. So here I've put poisson, and I've told it it's French, and it identifies this as fish. So this was a very common request, because we had learners not knowing English or German or French or one of the primary lexical languages that Sanskrit exists in, and using this translation tool, we allowed access to this dynamically. This is just an automatic machine translation from a third-party Google translation, but it was good to integrate it into the dictionary. And this is actually very useful, particularly for your first year of Sanskrit studies. So here I don't know how to spell Gaveshana, because you have different possible spellings when you hear it, and the early student would need a wildcard search. So we wanted to be able to allow a wildcard search in the dictionary, and this is something, as you're learning Sanskrit spelling, it's extremely useful. So the whole idea was to make it easier to acquire Sanskrit and more enjoyable along the journey. So you struggled less with things that you shouldn't struggle with, and you could spend more time sort of swimming in the ocean of the language. And following that, we have added a grammar search. This was based on standing on the shoulder of incredible giants like Gerard Hewitt, who had done this amazing Sanskrit reader site and computational work with rendering the different forms of words in Sanskrit. So here I can just put Gajena, and the dictionary identifies it as a masculine instrumental singular. And this is very useful also, once again, for your early students who are overwhelmed with all the different inflective forms of these stems that one encounters in Sanskrit. So the idea was, once again, to make it easier to learn and quicker, more rapid to learn the language. Following that, we wanted to help the student who is learning the Vedic grammar and also the working with the Vedic texts. And those who have studied any of the Vedic literature will know that words can have different meanings. So we are marrying different sources. You'll see that there's the Bloomfield Vedic Concordance along with the MacDonald Vedic Search. So the word Asura here is a divine spirit, which is correct in the Vedic literature, but of course demon in the classical. So by having the ability to look side by side, one can comparatively see how the meaning has changed. There are many words, like Ratna is another one. There are a few hundred words that have gone through these transformations where the meaning, or it will have a slightly different meaning in the Vedic literature. And this is important to help students to do comparisons. Of course, that information was there, but it was much more tedious to see it so rapidly. Here, within a second, we can do these correlations. Synonyms was something that in my first few years of undergraduate Sanskrit, I realized that this is the black belt synonymic language on earth with very little competition. And this is because of this, this metaphoric way of creating words in Sanskrit where you can describe the quality. So here, like a deer would be known as timid-hearted or twig eater, the palavada, or one who's afraid of hunters. But all of these mean deer in that context. So what I thought would be really nice would be to extract synonyms. So when I've sat with pundits, I would often joke with them. I remember I was with this Sampadananda Mishra, and I would say, okay, how many words can you name for water? And he would maybe get to 20 or 30. And then I would show him this, and it was quite impressive because here we have mined this out of the Monier-Williams and the UpTIR data. And these are, of course, one can distill more, but this is done through a Python script, rendering this from the data and finding the synonym. And those who've studied the Shabdakosha will know that there already are these synonymic works, but even then they have much less than we've managed to mine from these modern dictionaries. So it just shows you with incredible awe. I can put another word here, mountain. These are common words, and we have more than 100. I remember Robert Svoboda, in one of his books he wrote, there were 96 words for love. Well, here it extracts 76, and it also shows you the roots that are identified as meaning love. And any word can be taken, and these are all live, and you can use these synonymic tools. This was made quite early on, and it was when I realized that one should embrace these synonyms and also become familiar with them if one wants to become a good Sanskrit poet. And another thing we did with the synonyms was we did this word across languages just to show the comparative with other languages. And this is very, very interesting just for one's own learning. If you take, say, a word like stand, we know it comes from the dhatu star. And then if you just take this ST, here I'm searching for the ST, and you'll just see Icelandic and in Italian and Latin. So it's very useful to see how, of course, these are all Indo-European languages, and Sanskrit is Indo-European. They have common ancestor, but it's very interesting to see how these are intertwined linguistically. And this was just a tool for people to play in a very joyful way and embrace and enjoy these links between Sanskrit and the Sanskritic world and the European world. And sometimes the links went a little bit further. This is an interesting example from an Icelandic friend on the word sambanda, which could mean relationship. And you'll see here in Icelandic, which is rather far away, we have sambandi. So this is quite interesting. And this tool allows you to rapidly, the idea was, of course, one could go and get an Icelandic dictionary and get a Sanskrit dictionary and slowly find these, but here the tool allows you to find this very rapidly. And we integrated the Wordnet data, which was done by one of the universities in India. And I think it was an IIT that had done it. So here we have a Sanskrit synonymic tool. So you can take Sri and then you can see all the Sanskrit to Sanskrit synonyms. This is very similar to the Shabdakoshas, how they would give it. And we also have the Amarakosha data, of course, it is there already. So this is the earlier version. Amarakosha is the most famous of the Shabdakoshas. And you will see that it gives all these words for Sri. And then this is a union of many of these Shabdakoshas in the Wordnet data that was compiled. So all of these were ready to make the journey for the new student, particularly. Maybe the black belt is not going to use these tools every day, but they might use them easier. And so we continued, and along this journey, we wanted to give the new student, the ability to explore roots. So you have around 2,000 odd roots in Sanskrit. A root, a very common one, ram. Here I can enter the root, the dhatu, and these are taken from Panini's Dhatupata. And we can see in the UpTIR dictionary how these roots in different forms have just created innocently words. We haven't gone with negations. We're just taking where the word begins with the root or the strengthening of that root. And then you can see, so here we have Ramaka, the word Alava, and it's all come from Ram. So we have hundreds of words that have expanded from one root. And it's quite interesting to see this. It's very visual, and the tool allows you in an interactive way to play with any root. You could take any Sanskrit root. And you can also go backwards. You could say, well, let's just take a root that means to eat, and let's see what words have come out of that root. Here we have an, which the one that obviously influenced the eat word in English is ad, and that allows you to see all of these words. Here we would have a few hundred words that have come out. And this is using the Apte and the Monier-Williams data and then Panini's data. So it's a union of 3 data sets. So this is our root explorer. That's once again there to inspire and invigorate the young new student to Sanskrit, but also the mature student can benefit from these tools. And one of the things I embraced quite early on was looking at the different lipis and understanding where Devanagari came from. And of course, it comes from Brahmi. And Brahmi is very interesting. I'll just show you what we did with the dictionaries. We firstly wanted to make, here's Madhuka. For those who can read Brahmi, I'll make it a bit bigger. You can see Madhuka. There is a speculation that it could be acrophonic, the Brahmic script. That's a debate. I won't go into that. But basically, we wanted to make it available in the dictionary. And we also wanted to make it that the user could easily type in the Brahmi script. So I'm going to show you this tool later. But we do have a tool where you can type in Brahmi here. There I've just typed Madhuka in the browser, and we can also type it wherever we want. So we wanted to embrace Brahmi, and one of the reasons was that it was unifying in terms of histographically this from Afghanistan, the region all the way down to Indonesia. And I believe even in the Philippines, you have epigraphical record of Brahmi being used. And of course, today, Devanagari is Brahmic. The one of the earlier scripts of the Maldives is Brahmic, and the current script in Thailand, Tibetan language, is using a Brahmic script. So I call it this sort of unifying writing system of this entire region. And it's very important just to be awake to Brahmi's influence. And the other one that was touched upon in the introduction is this word frequency tool. So each of these projects, behind the scenes, there would be anything from 1 to 5 people working on the data. And we would, of course, always be standing on the shoulders of giants. Here, the giant was Dr. Oliver Helvig, incredible giant in the computational Sanskrit realm. And at that time, he had this digital corpus of Sanskrit, and we extracted the data. It was 3.2 million occurrences of 67,000 unique lemma. And this was in 190 texts. And what we did is we analyzed it through a frequency analysis, and then we also made different ways to explore it. So let's say I want to say in the Vedic literature, what would be the most common noun? Of course, things like Agni and possibly Indra. So I'm searching for Indra, and it comes up rank number 18, which makes sense. And Rishi is there number 20. And as you hover over it, you will see a definition. What's very useful, and I think a few professors are using this with their students, is to create cards, flashcards with these words. Of course, cha and tad, this or that, na, not, ever, only could be, or the personal pronouns and so forth. These are the words that you have to memorize rapidly. So by obviously familiarizing yourself with these, say, top 100, then top 200, then top 400, rapidly, you will be able to learn and climb this Sanskritic mountain much quicker. So the idea was to really make a tool to rapidly acquire Sanskrit, and it's out there, and this is obviously being used pedagogically, which we're very, very happy about. So that was the next on our journey, in this decade-long journey. And well, one of the things that I saw had not been done properly was text-to-speech, and I wonder if I'm sharing the audio. Let me just share the audio. I'm going to make sure that you can hear the audio. So here I've searched the dictionary for Atma, a nice word, and I've enabled audio, and I'm just clicking on this.
Atma Bandhu.
You should be hearing Atma Bandhu. So this is an engine. It's in the public domain. It's running on Heroku for those technical. It's a Java API, and anyone can link to it. If they wish, they can contact us, and they can have the rendering of Sanskrit speech. And this is rendered on the fly using the phonic rules, the phonetic rules of generating this language. And it's very useful for students in remote places who don't perhaps have access to a teacher, and they want to know how a word is pronounced correctly. So this was the next station on our decade-long journey with Sanskrit. And following that, we worked on OCR. This was initially working with the Tesseract platform. And then we started a feedback loop with a team at Google that was working on Devanagari. And we managed to help to give feedbacks and improve the system. And it's being used now. There's 3.8 million documents. This is in the public domain. It's free. It's out there. It still has Tesseract running and the Google engine both. And this is something that scholars can use for doing the optical character recognition. And this is quite a badly written document. And I would say it gets as accurate as you would type it. And it saves you probably 10 minutes of typing, and it does it in about a second. So this is really the marriage of computer science and the language, this immensely great language of Sanskrit that we've been doing. And this is the theme of our work. And one of the things I wasn't happy with as a young student was typing Sanskrit. So we created a free tool called Sanskrit Writer. It's available on OS X and also on Windows. It's also in the dictionary. You can enable it in the dictionary. And I attended in 2011 this World Sanskrit Book Fair, and I looked at all the ways of typing Sanskrit. And there was a keyboard developed there, which is going sequentially, I, U. And then there was obviously the government standard keyboard, which was the Hindi and the Devanagari keyboard. I wasn't too happy with either. So I wanted something where your brain map of QWERTY, which everyone already knows pretty much, inside and outside of India, that is encountering either English or any QWERTY-based. Of course, if you're in Germany or France, this doesn't necessarily include you, but you would be able to familiarize yourself rapidly with QWERTY. So the idea was to make it extremely rapid to be able to type Sanskrit. So I wanted something you could learn in 1 minute. So what we did is we took the rules of the International Alphabet of Sanskrit Transliteration, and you diagrammatically in your mind just draw them from top to bottom. So if there's a dash and an A from top to bottom, you just type -A when the Sanskrit mode is enabled, and then you just select whichever output you want. So your long R or the long R is basically -R dot, and your ta is T dot, and then obviously with the A is T dot A. And the idea was that I could explain, and in less than 60 seconds, someone could learn it. We also built in a dictionary to make this pretty useful. And I'll just give you a quick live demo of it. So I'm in IAST now. So I'm just typing Ramaha, and then I'm going into Devanagari with the same aham sanskritam likhami. So with the same speed that I'm able to type in any other language that I'm familiar with on the QWERTY keyboard, I've just typed Sanskrit. And we threw in a dictionary. So if you hit Command and / you will get this dictionary. This was a dictionary which has all the forms. So the idea was the kind of trainer wheels that people would have this tool to write Sanskrit, type it. And here it's in IAST mode with the dictionary. And I want to say the word rain. Sorry, I know the word rain in English, and I get a few choices. I can choose Varsha, and there I can say, okay, am I writing in the dual or plural, a lot of rain? And it will output that word, and it can output in any of the outputs, either Devanagari or Brahmi. So the idea was trainer wheels, and also to make it less than 60 seconds to type. So once again, the theme you can see here is accelerating the acquisition and the enjoyment, the delectation of Sanskrit. And that was the next tool that we made. And in my 4th and 5th years, I had worked with Panini, with Dr. Taylor, and I wasn't satisfied with there being a unified source, a kind of programmer's reference for these 4,000 rules. You've got 4,000, just short of 4,000 rules in Panini. So I wanted to create a very easy, ready reference, similar to a computer programmer's manual, and I wanted to link it together. There were many wonderful works done, and we got permission from people like George Cordona, from his translation of the Mahabhashya. We have taken some of the earlier works that were out of copyright, and then some contemporary works also. So the idea really was to make a reference where you could see the rules, and also we have a recitation recorded of each rule. So in the traditional gurukuls, you would learn the rules through repetition, and then you would start to understand the meanings and how they all integrate. So those who have studied the Vyakarana, you will know that you need to cross-reference with many rules, and there are many interrelated rules. So this just allows you to follow that sort of trail of rules and rules within rules and related rules. So it's something that we needed, and I was very delighted when Dr. Taylor, my teacher at ANU, said that he's now using it with his students. That was the greatest compliment, and I was very happy to see that it is being used. For us, the greatest joy is when these tools are being used, and we always appreciate feedback, of course. So, of course, we ran workshops with Dr. Ramna Sharma for 2 years running, and we will be doing more once the pandemic has completed itself. And we documented, and we've got about 6 days or 7 days of recording, full days of recording of him teaching the Ashtadhyayi. He's one of the great teachers out there. We also created educational games for learning the Sandhi rules. This is just called Sandhi Invaders, so it was just Space Invaders. So this becomes Long I, and it's using the same Sanskrit Writer rule, and if you make an error, then it's correcting you, and if you get it right, then you get points. So it was just a little interactive game, and it is also being used for those who are struggling to learn the Sandhi rules. You've got this game called Sandhi Invaders, where the letters fall from the sky. So we're going to go into the reference materials that we're working on. So one of the things that we identified was urgently needed was a mirror of the Digital Library of India, and not just a mirror. This is 32 terabytes and 500,000 books that were scanned by the Digital Library of India project. But it's very relevant for those working on the manuscriptic tradition. You can find many of the catalogs. Of course, archive.org has now mirrored this from us, and we have mirrored this, and then we've also made an ability to search inside. So in any script of your choice, you can search inside all of these works. So if you're looking for a needle in the proverbial haystack inside of these 32 terabytes of data, you can find it within a second. So once again, the idea was to make it very easy. The government had a DLI site, it went down, and it didn't give you the ability to actually search inside of the actual OCR of everything. So this many scholars are using on a daily basis who are working on the digitization. This is the memory of all of the out of copyright literature in the Indian Indic corpus. So it's super useful, and we wanted a mirror of that. So we host and we created this mirror. We mined that data and then mirrored it. We also did a mirror. Well, they actually we did a digital. There isn't a digital tool for Offrec. There is just the data you can download from Cologne. It was kindly digitized by Cologne, and this once again it has our text-to-speech engine running in it. And this is Alfrecht, which was about a century and a bit ago. Alfrecht mapped all of the Sanskrit catalogs and the literature, and this incredible effort, pre-digital, 44,000 unique rows of data. This is authors, works, and commentaries. And following that, and you'll see how this all ties together with our Moonshot project, which I'm coming to, which is called the Sanskrit Archive Project, which we've been working on for the last few years. I think all of these little tools will start to fall into place. So the next station for our journey was Offrect. And of course, along the way, we've made many references that are used. We've done Whitney's and the Lagosiddhanta Kaumudi and Vedic grammar for students. This was all digitized and collated and organized and put into these mini portals by our team in Auroville. And of course, the Little Red Book, which is the little reference of McComas Taylor. I think it's one of the most excellent for the first years of studies. It just gives you your instant ready reference. So we've put digital portals of these, and these you can go onto this free website I'll give you later, and you can browse these. Before I get to the Sanskrit Archive project, one of the things we've worked on and we felt very necessary is the visual language of posters. And the one we worked the longest on was this Indus script poster. What I found with the Indus, well, I shouldn't call it a script because it's either seals or a script. It's a debate. There is the script camp and there's the seals camp, but they are divided. And we wanted to stay very neutral and not try to solve it. Many great scholars had tried that, but we wanted to compile the materials, even quite difficult to get access to photographs and scans of the material. What we did is we had an artist work for a few months and trace a vector of each of the unique seals. We have around 400 principal characters, and you can see here we've traced them. And then what we did is we innocently, like a child would, we just sorted them based on their visual category. And we tried to identify that visual category. So if it was looking like a person or like a fish or like a bird or like a dog, or like a leaf or like a bug, or like a number, we would just categorize that and group them. And then we put an indicator for the frequency in the corpus. So the green shows you more frequent. So you can see, well, the numbers are quite frequent. So this already tells us something, just visually in less than a second or two. You can see 2, 3, but oddly 1 is less common, but maybe 2, there's a reason why 2 and 3 are more common. We can talk about that. And you will see things like fish is ranked number 3. Of course, this was a river-based civilization, so that already gets you thinking, was it a seal identifying things like that were being traded, which is speculated by Michael Witzel and the Stephen Farmer camp, or was it language like the Akshor Papola camp? Well, I would veer towards the seal camp, but as I said, we stay neutral here. But this was really for people to delectate in this visually, and also it was intended for students. It's a huge B-Note poster, and it's in 2 panels. So the first panel has this, and of course we've got a timeline, so we can see how it fits in the whole strata of time. And we've also got a huge map here, and showing the rivers, so it's important to visually get as much information. And in the second panel, we actually give examples of the actual seals. We got permission from the British Museum, and we show where the seals and the script was developed, 2500 BC, in the context of other seals and scripts. So you've got Proto-Elamite, and you've got Linear A coming. And so the idea really was to be as an inspiration and sort of a point of departure, but also to trace all of the seals and then sort them by frequency visually. So this is a huge B-Note poster, and anyone can download this PDF and have it printed and put it up at the walls of their institute. It's all in the public domain and open access. I did touch upon Brahmi and its significance earlier. So we decided to do a Brahmi poster. This is also a B-Note poster. And here, once again, we took all the different forms of the Brahmic scripts. This was another incredible project. I think Oliver Helbig had also worked on it in his earlier works. And we had traced them once again, vectorized it, and then just shown the Brahmi script and how it had been used, and also the sounds, the Sanskrit sounds, and the phonic aspect of it. Greek we did, just so people could do a comparative. Of course, Greek and Sanskrit are cousins. You've got so many words that are very close. Patera and Pitr and Triya and Tree, so forth. So this was just a visual journey into Greek and Sanskrit. I felt wherever there was a dialogue that I felt was not being voiced loudly enough, we wanted to use the visual language of a poster and of course the digital language of a tool to voice this as much as possible. And we did the same with Tamil. And the beautiful thing, of course, Tamil as a language is totally different. It's a Dravidian language, but the script, as you can see, Tamil alphabet was being written in the Brahmic script, and it evolved into what it is today, but it's all derived from the Brahmic script. So we wanted to visually show this. We distilled the 70 odd fruits from the Kriti-SAMHiTA just for interest's sake, and we just made a visual poster of that. That's also completed recently, and it just allows you to see the incredible, and this is really, when I was mentioning earlier in my talk how Charaka had been the door for me to get into the Sanskrit world. Just look at this, like 70 fruits. Like if we walk around India today, we don't encounter these 70 fruits so easily. We will see maybe 5 to 10 to 15. So it just makes you wonder how rich and detailed and deep the civilization was, and how much time they had for eating fruits. So our most recent poster was the Divehi poster. This is the Maldivian language, which is very much similar to the Vedic Sanskrit. So if you just look at the words, Bhasha is Bas, Purana is Purana, Aditya is Adita. So on the right is the Maldivian language, and we've done a poster with the different scripts, the different sounds where the sounds are missing, and the island names, and then the common words. This is really just to open up this dialogue of unity. We've been working with Dr. Gibet in Germany and also a scholar in the Maldives. And this is really to use Sanskrit as the departure point for this unifying journey of disparate places, and to bring people together and closer to understand the world and how it interlinks. So our Moonshot project, which has been, well, we could say on the launch pad since 2018, we've been working on the rocket, is the Sanskrit archive. It's close to publishing its first rendition. And the idea was really to give people this bird's eye view of the extant Sanskrit literature, and also how it is interrelated with commentaries and authors. There are other wonderful projects like the Pandit project that are also working in a similar line to show the relationships between different pieces of information. And we also wanted to give a place where any work that has already been digitized in the public domain, or people would want to digitize and see that there's a need, we give a place where they could publish it. And if there are any public domain manuscripts, they could be interlinked. And one of the things that we've been doing is we've done this kind of PageRank algorithm. PageRank is Google's algorithm for how it ranks the significance of a search entry based on how many links there are to it. So we considered a unique reference in a catalog, a manuscript catalog, as a ranking point. So I'm going to show you how this distills with the Sanskritic corpus. And we've also been tagging this database on subject, and also its interrelationships between works, whether they have a work and then the derived work, which would be a commentary, and then even commentaries on commentaries. You'll see how you can have multiple hierarchical relationships with this incredible corpus of work. And we're going to integrate it with many external data sources, such as Pandit and whatever Samhita is doing, basically anything in the public domain, and also offer a crowdsourced wiki-type interactive interface. So armies of people out there who have a love for a particular avenue of Sanskritic knowledge or a particular work can contribute. So it's really an archive of Sanskrit literature. And the most important, you could say, the skeletal aspect of this was to have a digital NCC, and this was kindly done with the Vande Mataram library in Delhi. They have supported this work. So the NCC, for those who are not familiar, it is the continuum of Alfrecht's work. It's the largest map we have of the Sanskritic and allied literature and authors and the commentaries. It's recently completed a few years ago in 2019, and it was running for 85 years. It had many delays along the way, but it was completed, and it was started by the very eminent Dr. Raghavan, and it was completed by Dr. Dash, who recently retired from the University of Madras. And this is the distillation of 1,000 catalogs, and 500 books were referenced to produce this. Obviously, there's always more, but we needed to start somewhere. And this was the most complete reference. I would say it's one of the greatest literary treasures of India and the world. So it was very significant to have this digitized. So just to give you an idea of the immensity, the entry for the Brahma Sutra, it just takes up 52 pages. It has 399 commentaries, and it has a commentary, then a commentary on a commentary, then a commentary on a commentary on a commentary, and then a commentary on a commentary on a commentary, and then a commentary on a commentary on a commentary on a commentary. This is phenomenal, just intellectually, for those who can visualize that. And it has 165,000 entries. Of that, 123,000 are works and 30,000 are authors. And this is spanning 14,000 pages. So we had a team in Ulur. This is the same team that's worked with Cologne under Dr. Thomas Malton, and they worked for this for a year and they worked on this for a year and a half. Through COVID, incredible women that have double-keyed this to make sure that there were no errors. Incredible precision was required because of even if you look at the first edition, it was published almost a century ago, so the printing was not great. So it really required incredible level of expertise just to digitize it. It was a huge mountain to climb, and I know many scholars had wished for this, like Sheldon Pollock, and many had wanted this to happen. So it was really a great achievement. To give you an idea of visually of what this is a map we produced of just the catalogs of the manuscripts. And I know the Samhita project are adding on to this, and we're doing a collaboration with them, which we'll talk about, to expand on this, particularly outside of India. But if you just look at the incredible map, and if you click on these, you can see, so this is the Patan collection, this is got 935 references. And here we have the Ujjain collection in Madhya Pradesh, and there was 2,675 references throughout the corpus just to this catalog. And you can visually see, so this was what these 1,000 reference works. Each of these might have multiple volumes, some of them up to 20 or more. And if we go outside of India, we will see that there's quite a lot in Europe, a little bit in the USA. In Nepal, we have very little. This is something that we're going to fill the gap with the Samhita collaboration. And also Pandit is doing great work on that. We even have something in Tibet. And also outside in Japan, we have some. So this gives you an idea of the catalogs describing the Sanskritic and allied literature and this incredible vastness that was there. And this doesn't even talk about many of the collections that have not been covered. I would estimate at least double this number. So if this is about 1,500 unique references, then I would say that at least 3,000 would be known about. We could double that. And possibly what hasn't been collected, we could have an unknown addition on that. So this is the map of the Sanskrit catalogs. And this is one of our volunteers. He worked for a year. We gave him accommodation and food, and he wrote Ruby on Rails, which is usually used to create startups in Silicon Valley, but we used it to create what we call the Ncc Browser. So once we had done this incredible digitization by that incredible team of women, Dinesh worked on this, and he made a digital Ncc. And we had to create a tool to allow our team in office and outside of office to start to tag this data. And you will see the data has now been tagged. Is it a work? Is it an author? This is a commentary. So we've written a Python auto tagger to tag about 1/3 of it automatically using regular expressions. And now we have humans checking that and also tagging the balance of it. And I would say we're almost half complete the tagging. And the tagging doesn't just include what is it and what subject it falls under, distilling the unique subjects. It also creates relationships between works. So we're turning this into relational data between a work and its commentaries. And we're also doing what's called info tagging if it's a significant, if it is one of the most, the top 1,000, and you'll see how we rank the top 1,000, then we've done an info tagging, and I'm going to come across that in a further slide. So this was Dinesh who worked on it. He's now in the US studying computer science further. So this is the team in office working on tagging. There's Sashka, Gali, and Gauri. And we've had many other wonderful volunteers working on this. And they're tagging this literature with the aid of this incredible tool that was created. When we were tagging it, we distilled these subjects, and we decided to stay aligned with the subjects as given in the text. So we were sort of true to how the text describes the subject. So if it describes it as Shaiva religion, we would stay there. Obviously, we could create synonyms for these subjects. Some of them have various different ways of describing the subject, but we have 103 subjects. And this is sort of the rainbow of dividing this incredible literature of the Sanskrit corpus. And you can see the subject, and we can start to do interesting things like see which subjects were more dense and over which time, just like we did with the word frequency. We can say, okay, where were the Vedas more prominent historically over time, because we're also chronotagging the works. You will see that. So we're doing geo and chronotagging at the same time, and you can see a little distillation of that. So these are works. These are just some significant works. So you can take a work, and then you will see this is one of the Puranas, and it's been geotagged, and we've even got the earliest date and the latest date. So based on, we would take the scholarly papers, it was 250 to 600, about 1500 to 1700 years ago. And the blue would be an author. And the idea is basically we will have this for all of the literature. So you'll be able to explore geographically, chronologically, the extant Sanskrit literature, to create these visual tools to really appreciate this incredible human treasure that we've got, which once you start to look at it visually, it's even more impressive than when you just narrowed in on reading one text or one work. And one of the things, although Wikipedia is not, in academic circles, it's not like a scholarly full stop. It's seen as just a reference. We thought, because it's so prolific for people to sort of reading up on subjects, we thought the most prominent 1,000 entries in the NCC should have a Wikipedia entry. So we actually started a partnership with the Wikimedia Foundation, and they've done training in our office of one of our volunteers, Daniel from Germany. And here you can see none of these popular entries from the NCC had a wiki entry. So we're creating stubs, and then we're going to start a community process to get people who are experts in these subjects to start to update Wikipedia. It has become the digital encyclopedic reference, and it's also the one that you get first until we have something better. And so we thought wherever there are gaps in the creation of references from Wikipedia, we should do that. So you'll see here's the ranking of the most popular works distilled from the New Catalogus Catalogorum. And if they didn't have a wiki article, we have created a stub, and we are doing this sort of sprint with the Wikimedia Foundation once we've got the stubs for 1,000 entries, and we're going to get the Sanskritic community to contribute, because obviously Wikipedia is fully interactive and crowdsourceable, so anyone can come on and edit it. And what's interesting is we did some statistical analysis of the Sanskritic corpus and corpi, and you'll see Jainism is up at 12.5%. It was extremely literate and well preserved. Buddhism is 10%, and then Stotra is 8%, and then Jyotisha is there at 7%, and medicine is 3%. It's quite high for medicine. If you would say in the English literature, it would be much lower. So there was a strong emphasis on this Ayurveda, and you can see where the emphasis was in this what's been preserved in the literary tradition. Poetry was there at 2.6%. It's also quite high, and Vyakarana is also 2.4%. So these are quite high if you compare them to other languages. And Advaita is there at 1.3%. And you can explore this. There's a tool that we've got where you can actually use this, and as we are tagging this this skeletal work of the Sanskritic corpi, it will update in real time. It's very important that all of this. So now let's look at the most significant works. So actually, this is the ancient page rank we've made, and you can actually open it in the digital New Catalogus Catalogorum, and you will see basically when we are sorting it based on the number of manuscriptic references. You'll see the Bhagavata rightfully comes the most popular, and the Brahma Sutra is coming next, the Mahabharata is next, the Ramayana is next, The Bhagavad Gita is next. So this is really like your most referenced Sanskritic literature. And you will see that there are some authors coming there. Here's an author, Shankaracharya, rightfully coming quite high up. And this is very useful just to understand what in the ancient psyche were the works that were duplicated the most. Of course, this could be having an influence or bias by one king who had taken this as his favorite text and been extremely wealthy. And this is usually the case, and said, this work must be duplicated more than any other work. And well, we know in the Christianic world that's done with the St. James Bible or anything else. So why not with the Sanskritic world? But it gives us incredible perspective. And in our Sanskrit archive, we'll obviously, when we put this in the public, we will of course have a search, but we will have this ranking to allow people to see what were the most significant works in terms of the ancient mind and the ancient memory, we should call it. And here it is again, and you can all explore this. These are all interactive. So this is the info tagging that we did. The same team is doing the info tagging, and we would chronotag, give it a time, and geotag it. And this is done for the top 1,000 works. So this brings us to the Sanskrit archive. This is the rough mock-up of what we're building. So it will have a search, and you'll be able to browse by subject, by title, by author. It will show you the most significant works, the most significant authors, and the most significant commentaries. And you'll be able to also explore geographically and explore chronologically. So this is a huge, ambitious project, but we are almost ready to publish the first version of it. It's a collaboration. We will partner with many other organizations, and we have support from Google Research worldwide and in India, and also Samhita and the Pandit project. It needs as many people as possible, as many hands on deck. And one of the significant collaborations here is the Samhita collaboration, which has been incredible in the last year. And that is basically working on filling in the gaps of identifying Sanskrit catalogs and also manuscripts that are outside of India. So as I showed you earlier, the Ncc and Alfrecht, they were very good at documenting what was inside of India, but there was some gap. They didn't capture everything, what is outside of India. So we've got approximately 100,000 manuscripts outside of India, and then in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and so forth, possibly 200,000 or more. This is something that we have to still determine. And there's a collaboration that we're forming with Google Research. And the first project we're going to work with them on is the OCR, optical character recognition for manuscripts. And they have very good success with Greek epigraphy, getting as good or better than humans. And there are very few people reading these lipis, and often that skill is becoming more and more endangered. So we thought machines should learn to read all of these lipis that the Sanskrit and other language literatures were written in. So I will update you in my next presentation on how this is going. And this also we will involve Samhita and the India International Project team on. And just I'm going to touch in the tail of my talk. I know I've gone a little bit over time, maybe 15 minutes, but Niharika said it would be fine. 2019, I gave a lecture at the University of Cape Town. I'm born in Cape Town, South Africa. And I started sharing some of these tools that we had developed and refactoring them for the San languages, and going from Indology and Sanskrit linguistics and computational linguistics to the San and Khoi linguistics. And for those who don't know, the San people are considered the oldest people, and all of us have come from them. About 150 to 180,000 years ago, everyone's ancestor, descendant everyone's ancestor was in southeastern Africa, of the southern part of Africa. And basically, I gave a lecture on Sanskrit, and they invited me to work on the San languages. So these are the San languages. There are three families of languages. There's the Khoikwadi, the Ka language, and the Tu language. Well, those are the families. And recently, I've worked on the Ngu language and the Khoi language. So the same tools that I've just shown, that Sanskrit Writer has now become Khoi Writer, and the Sanskrit Dictionary is now a Khoi dictionary for the Khoi language and the dialects, the Nama and so forth. And the text-to-speech that we did, we are now working with some newer tools. There's some newer tools to build text-to-speech. It keeps improving because it uses neural networks. We're building a text-to-speech engine and API for the Khoi language that I will share with you on any next presentation. And there's a glimpse at the dictionary. And this brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. And we'll take any questions. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Gluckman, for that very impressive presentation. It was, of course, information-packed, more information than perhaps we could all absorb it in one sitting. But now I will request Niharika to take over and to conduct the Q&A session that remains. And we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you so much, Professor Malik. So the first question is from Harpreet Singh. This is more about the theme of Kriti-SAMHiTA. It's an observation that if the very basis of human knowledge systems is plurality, can it be reduced to a geographic area like India? So that point is well taken. And of course, we are thinking that this merely means the plurality of knowledge systems that happen to have sort of either been born or sort of grown or developed and exchanged within South Asia, which we now, and includes the area we now call India. Now, there are a number of comments of great appreciation, I think, from Shailendra Mehta, who says how your OCR project is a lifesaver. He uses it all the time. A big thank you, and your Sanskrit Writer as well. He also has a number of questions. He's saying, as you know, the Deccan College Sanskrit Dictionary project has published 35 volumes, about one a year, and have 350 volumes to go. They have 1.5 million headwords that are catalogued, and are you coordinating with them? He also asked your views on the Google Translate project, which just included Sanskrit. Would you like to respond?
Thanks. Thank you, Shailendra, for those great questions. The Deakin College project, we are interested to collaborate, but yeah, I mean, as much as they would like to collaborate, would be open to collaborate. The idea with the Meta Sanskrit Dictionary is to have any source that can be published there, and then also to display it and organize it in a sensible way. But if they would like to collaborate, we haven't collaborated yet with them. I believe maybe about 5-6 years ago, we were in touch with them, and I will follow up again. Obviously, it's going at quite a slow pace, but it's a very ambitious and very, very wonderful project. And also, if I recall, we offered to help them and assist them with the digital tools at the time. I think they're doing a hybrid, non-digital and digital approach. And then Google Translate is excellent. It's a great first step. We're actually in touch with some of the team members from that project and giving them feedback. There was a lovely discussion on Indology about it critically. If you haven't read it, you can go to indology.info, the site of the Indological community, and just look at the Google Translate. It's in the May archive. There's a lovely discussion. I think it's really great for learning, and we're going to be embedding it into any tools that we build that need translation as a best effort, because it is the only real-time digital translation that we have in Sanskrit. I think it's an incredible accomplishment. And as with most Google tools, it will improve over time. And if people have feedback, you can add the feedback either on that discussion if you're on Indology, or send it to me, because I will send all feedbacks to Google directly. Thank you.
I think we have some more questions, which I think we'll be sort of developing and sending you later about the stages of Brahmi, but I think that's just going to be sort of connecting with that offline. So I think that closes. I think there are, we don't have too many more questions. So we can So sorry. We can possibly, I think we'll probably close for the evening, but thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Professor Malik, and thank you very, very much, Martin. I mean, this was, as Professor Malik said, it's a kind of ocean, this wealth of literature, and even handholding us through your decade of work, which is like what seems like a lifetime's work, is a great extraordinary experience. We just to see one just feels like scratching the surface of what you've done, but there's so much more to explore. It's like standing at the sort of base camp of Everest or something. And please come for request everybody to join us for forthcoming Kriti-SAMHiTA lectures. These are usually the end of the month. On June 25th, we have Dr. Jakob Schmidt-Madsen, who will be speaking on traditional Indian games. And in July, Professor Saroja Bhatti will be speaking about the manuscript of the Mahabhashya Deepika, which is Bhartrihari's commentary on Patanjali's commentary on Panini. And in August, we have Professor Keshan Veluthar speaking on wordplay and Sanskrit literature. So thank you very much again, and good day to all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Niharika and Sudha and team for organizing this so beautifully.